Well, it's been a busy week. I've had company, gotten some projects done. I'm halfway through completing any one of a dozen projects that we'll talk about. Oh, and trigger warning, we're going to talk a little bit about AI, but it's going to be the schadenfreude, the fumbling, like the badness that's going on, because there's a little bit of a Linux tangent there, because you that are watching this can seize the day. We need you more than ever now to become entrepreneurial and or pick up the pieces and or do interesting things. Anyway, let's get started. All right, first up, this is the MSI Claw 8 EX AI Plus. This is the one that's based on Panther Lake, G3 new graphics. And this is running Linux, not Windows. They come with Windows. A lot of optimization has gone into Windows. It runs Windows pretty well. It depends on a lot of new technologies around frame generation and frame pacing and power management, such that the CPU gets a little less power and the GPU gets a little bit more power. You have 8 efficiency cores in this thing and 2 performance cores. And a lot of the pre-existing plumbing wants to optimize to send everything to the performance cores. But the reality, because the cache topology and some other technical details in this thing is way different than previously, those E-cores can hold their own. And for most games, they run really well with not using the P-cores at all. The P-cores can give you a little bit of a bump, and you don't really have too much of an L3 cache penalty. And so if this is interesting, there's a forum thread that you could help out. Right now, Mesa is not quite there in terms of like the overall performance. We're about 25% behind, give or take, behind our Windows counterparts. But frame generation using some of Intel's DLLs and libraries from Windows ported over to Linux seem to be working without too much headache. So a combination of like game mode run and task set. Game mode run also is super optimized for picking the best cores, and we don't always want to pick the best cores depending on what game it is. So a fair bit of hackery going on there. This has been a lot of fun to experiment with. So if this is your thing and you want to help out or point me to the right way to try some Mesa or out of band patches, or you work on this kind of stuff and want to do it remotely, hit me up at the forum. That's what the forum is for. We're running a benchmark in 1920 by 1200 because this really doesn't need to be 1920 by 1200. Like, this is one of the few cases where running at 1280 and then scaling to 1080p is very hard for me to tell a difference. Now, on a larger display, I can tell a difference, but like, it's a lot of fun. We'll leave that running. Guests and company. Eric Raymond came to visit, and that's a lot of fun. He's a very, very sharp dude. I hope I'm that sharp when I reach his age, or comparatively so, or very, very smart dude. Interesting insights, interesting historical perspective on Linux and the open source movement, and why that's relevant today. I think, or the most important thing about that is that the challenges that he was facing with, corporations owning the software that runs on a computer. I was like, how are you going to really reverse engineer the entire software stack on a computer so that you can run arbitrary software on your own computer? That's madness. That will never happen. And yet that is the thing that is powering our economy. In IT and in software, it would be hard to argue that the economic value of open source to pretty much the entire economic output of companies on Earth can't be understated. Like, open source and having that as a place to start to hit the ground running for your ideas and everything else has become hugely important to the world economy, more so than any other proprietary software, I think. 30 FPS at 1080p on high. That's pretty crazy. With FreeSync, that's kind of a lot of fun. I like to have a little bit more FPS in Cyberpunk, but for 1080p native without scaling, that's pretty crazy. No frame generation, no resolution scaling, and no ray tracing. So if you do frame generation, ray tracing, 60 FPS, pretty fun. Sorry, distraction. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. And so, corporate censorship also, like CDA, the Communications Decency Act, really rhymes a lot with having to present your ID online. And presenting your ID online is the first step towards the end of anonymous speech. So, like, first requiring websites to identify your visitor with a real ID we don't have the tools to manage that level of personal data in a secure way. We don't have the tools to manage your credit report in a secure way. And yet here we are, and we want to log more data and have more insight. It's going to become an increasingly uphill battle for the individual when they get caught up in the system or they get misidentified in the system to prove that they're innocent. There will be all this evidence against you when something happens, or evidence will be fabricated. It's like, oh, this is an inconvenient person. Let's just create a bunch of electronic evidence and the problem will solve itself, because they'll be busy for the next 5 to 10 years dealing with the chaos that created. Intelligence services already do that. You need a certain ability in this world. Like, ordinary citizens can look around and say, wow, the absurdity of this situation is obvious and apparent. Can we as citizens discuss this and maybe take corrective actions to solve it? And there are more dollars and force behind working against reasonableness than there is executing that. And so I think Eric has a lot of experience in dealing with that. And he has always been, or has become, insanely good at giving you the mental framework to look at something and say, well, that is kind of absurd, or at least presenting an interesting argument, if nothing else. An interesting set of data, if you will. So we built this machine. We had some discussions. There's a couple of videos that are coming out on that. But also, right to repair, I think, ties in with all of this, and being able to do what you want on your computer without having any oversight from, it's like, oh, this is felony contempt of business model. We don't want to do this. Because right to repair, if you really look at it with brass tacks, a lot of problems with right to repair is that farmers are doing things that are really contempt of the tractor company's business model, and not so much make it easier to repair. And this should be illegal. There are probably laws that runs against at the federal level, at least in the United States. But a lot of the time, laws will be co-opted. See also the age verification thing. A lot of parents. It's like, there needs to be better tools for me to protect my children online because I've tried to use the tools and they don't work. That is a very fair point. That is entirely reasonable. The deck is entirely stacked against them. It's entirely stacked against parents to control content online at the device level, IMHO. However, if Meta is working against you for parental controls currently, why would they fund parental control legislation and go to lawmakers and say, yes, we need parental control laws, tell us what to do? 2 reasons. One, Meta knows that lawmakers have no idea what they're doing, and whatever passed will be whatever Meta wants them to pass, which I assure you, as a parent, is not in your best interest. Letting Meta come up with the law for age verification, are you insane? Not going to work out for you. The second thing is that will then retroactively function as a get-out-of-jail-free card. So Meta will go back and say, look, we did the stuff in the law. What do you want from us? We did what we were supposed to do. To harm the children. Yeah. Being forced to use your ID to get on a website is a cure worse than the disease. Again, IMHO. And how this ties in with Linux is a lot of the arguments against right to repair. It's like, oh, your tractor will turn dangerous. Oh, your drive-by-wire car could kill people if it's not repaired correctly. And it's like, well, that's true of my 1973 Ford Pinto. I mean, if I don't repair it correctly, it could kill people. If I don't replace the tie rod correctly, it could kill people. If I don't change a tire correctly, it could kill people. But there is still a certain amount of responsibility that we as individuals take and that society takes. And we don't need a nanny trying to put bumpers on everything so that we don't hit our head occasionally. Like Q said, every now and then you need a bloody nose. And part of this is important to me in the context of Linux and open source because the right to compute freely is, I think, incredibly important to the future of humanity. Being able to run software that you control, have the source code, understand it, be able to put it together. And also for the future with AI and AI tooling. I am scared to death of a future that Sam Altman or Dario or even Satya Nadella control. That is absolutely terrifying. At the same time, the tooling that I can already run locally and that I already have is astonishing. It is the most amazing cutting edge computer science that I've ever seen in my life. This is a G6 Fury workstation from HP. I've got a full review on this coming soon. This has dual RTX 6000s in it. This is a dream machine to work on. And yes, it is fabulously expensive, but I don't think this is unprecedented in history. This is like the ultimate silicon graphics workstation. Not even the ultimate. This is going to be sort of the middle of the road option, even though it is wildly expensive. There's going to be options at 30, 50, 80, 120, 150, $200,000 desk side for this kind of compute. And there was a market for that even in the 1980s and 1990s as things were taking off. See, it all started, well, one of the ways that it started was in 1978. Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, was working for HP. It was like 76, actually, I think. He was working for HP. He came up with the Apple I, an idea for a home computer. It was anemic. It was incredibly inadequate. It was incredibly underpowered. But there was a lot of interest from a relatively small hacker community for home computers at the time. There were things other than the Apple I. So like 76, 78, things really started to take off. But because Steve Wozniak was a brilliant engineer and he also had, he was gainfully employed at HP, HP had in their employment agreement that they owned inventions. They owned stuff that their engineers came up with, including the Apple I. And so I think it was 76 or 77, somewhere through there, Woz had to go to his boss at HP and say, I've come up with this computer. I would like to have HP release it. And it's like, well, no, if you've invented a new computer, we can't release that for you. And he's like, well, this is meant to be a home computer. And I was like, a home computer in 1976? That's absurd. There is no way that anybody will ever be able to afford a home computer. There is a world market for like maybe 6 home computers or something absurd like that is what his boss said. And so HP gave Wozniak the release for the Apple I. And it was a kit computer. You would buy it, you put it together. Again, incredibly inadequate compute. You could get compute time at your local university. You could get compute time on a big mainframe, something that we would refer to now today as the cloud. But the cloud didn't exist because the interconnectivity layer wasn't really there. But you wouldn't own a computer at home. And if you did, it would be a toy. It would be an advanced calculator, basically. This is where we are today in 2026. You probably don't have something at home that can run a frontier model, but you can run a lot of really advanced models and have a lot of fun tinkering and do really interesting things. And the time delta, from like the late 70s to like the 90s, I would say, is when it really became a thing that every person sort of recognized as like, oh, this will be really useful. There were articles in the 90s that said that the internet was a fad and online shopping isn't really a thing. And, the .com bust and pets.com, a lot of really credentialed authors, Pulitzer Prize winning authors, looked at things then and said, yeah, the internet is probably going to go away. It's not. It's for AI to not be a tool of oppression. More people have to understand it, and more people have to not let giant companies do things. Now, it's been amazing because Dario successfully convinced a bunch of people that the AI was too advanced. And so the controls and the emissions, I don't really want to talk about that in a Linux video, but that's really funny because I think that accelerates the idea of being able to run things locally and being able to run useful things locally. And certainly Eric Raymond talked about that. He is using local tools. Now, with his insane programming experience and his ability to do what he does, AI is still useful to him to carry out tasks like a minion. It's not a tool to turn his brain off. It is a tool to accelerate his brain. And that is how things are going to be used. I think there's a lot of executives out there that don't understand this, and they are running their companies into the ground, and they're going to destroy things. And Altman and Dario are happy to see them do that and then pick up the pieces, probably. Oh, and check out this thing. Ford had to hire their engineers to come back after the AI was messing up things. You see, AI can be useful, but not in the hands of management that doesn't understand the problem that they're trying to solve. To them, the Vibe OS generated calculator app is no different than a regular calculator app. And that is really, really terrifying. But that can be your opportunity. And so you that are watching this video, have the agency and the determination, and I promise you the skill, or you can get there, to run models locally and do interesting things with them. And yeah, and sorry for the long ramble, but we do have a thread on the forum. What topic do you want Wendell to ramble about on Linux Live Weekly? And I'll probably default to Linux and AI unless you give me topics. So it's just like, okay, I saw a Surface tablet last Thursday at a conference I was at. It was thicker than I was expecting, but by no means unreasonable. It's like Microsoft is going to run on ARM. A lot of changes coming with that, so it's going to be really interesting. The other thing is for projects this week. IKEA has these Elpstuga Matter IKEA Smart Home. These are CO2 sensors that are not completely terrible. It's literally just labeled Elpstuga. Friend turned me onto these. Picked up 4 of them, and they work great with the Home Assistant Connect ZBT2. So you put this in thread mode, and then this can become your thread gateway on your Home Assistant machine. Oh my gosh, these are amazing because you get CO2, humidity, temperature. You can scatter them around your house or your office or whatever. I've got the autopilot CO2 sensor. That one's really accurate. I find these do not agree super good with each other or the autopilot. So I question the accuracy of them. I've not formally tested that, but having this integration in Home Assistant for like $30 each versus a lot more than $30, very happy with that. Very happy with that integration. So that was a lot of fun. So that's basically what I worked on this week. The review for this is almost out. It's a really incredible work. Like it feels like the future. And yeah, it's silicon graphics. And my history lesson there is like, imagine like this is a high end silicon graphics where like we got a Deck Alpha workstation for the office. Woo! I know I'm not speaking to a lot of you in the audience that are younger, but it was like this once before in the 70s and 80s. I don't remember that. I've just read that. That was before my time. But, you know, growing up and salvaging things from the dumpster, it's like, oh, I found this thing from 10 years ago. It's interesting. I am having a lot of fun with Linux on this thing. So point me toward, hit me up in the forum, point me toward patches and Mesa updates and whatever we need for the G3 Extreme Panther Lake, because the platform is amazing. The platform is launching into the darkest timeline possible for consumer electronics, IMHO. And, maybe the darkest timeline overall, because there's a lot going on the world stage to do with the costs and like the cost of food and housing and fuel and energy, and not fabulous for a lot of things. But if you need to turn all that off in your brain and configure Home Assistant with Matter and Threads and put it together and have a little talking machine and maybe a chatbot .matrix printer, well, that's here. That's here. So let's chat. Let's have some topics for next week's Linux update in the forum thread, and check out our other videos and let me know what your thoughts and questions are. All right, I'm Will. It's Level 1 Linux. Signing out. I'll see you in the forum.